I can't believe this. Hey, are you hiding something from me? Who exactly are you?
President Emily Johnson, who inherited the company from her late father and was desperately supporting it,
Was unjustly accused and ousted from her position due to Vice President Davis's scheme. Yes, in an instant, she lost everything.
she had nowhere to return to.
But she wasn't going to let it end like this. For the sake of Emily, I steeled myself and took action. I'll handle this. Leave it to me. Tom, well done.
Convincing Mr. Smith was quite the feat many have tried and failed before. No, it was just a coincidence that I understood what Mr. Smith wanted, that's why it worked out. I became the talk of the office for securing a contract for our new product with the difficult Mr. Smith, whom many of my seniors had tried and failed to negotiate with. I work for a mid-sized machinery manufacturer. Since our clients are mostly factories and logistics companies, I visit job sites daily to promote our products. I often negotiate with tough, self-made presidents like Mr. Smith, who was particularly stubborn.
It's been almost 3 years since I joined this company. Being a mid-sized company, we're always short-staffed.
When I joined, there was only one other person in my cohort. So, there haven't been any new hires since I joined, and I'm still at the bottom.
I knew you could do it.
As expected from the customer service contest winner.
Tom, you could be a lawyer. No way, I can't memorize all those law books. Though I did win the contest, it's not that I have exceptional negotiation skills. I simply enjoy debating and finding a compromise. I've loved debating since I was a kid.
Back then, it was mostly arguing for the sake of arguing and picking apart others' flaws, which I found satisfying. In hindsight, I was quite a twisted kid, but at the time, I loved it.
I remember my parents saying to me, "You always have a comeback for everything."
In middle school, I stopped picking arguments with classmates and instead targeted teachers and high schoolers.
If you keep making smart remarks all the time, people will dislike you.
As I was pumping air into my bike tire in front of my house, Emily called out from behind.
Emily was my childhood friend, the same age as me.
We lived 2 houses apart, so we would see each other often.
Worry about yourself. No one cares about your cute clothes, so stop wasting your time. Shut up. I can wear whatever I want. It's none of your business.
She had a sharp tongue and could be meddlesome, but I admired her for being diligent and hardworking. Her parents run a company, making her a so-called rich girl. As I finished pumping air into the tire and got on my bike to leave, Emily stood there with her hands on her hips, glaring at me.
Where are you going? None of your business. You should be studying for the test tomorrow. I'm not as smart as you, so I'll just wing it. Having said that, I pedaled away.
If I had studied properly back then, I might have gone to a decent high school, then to a decent college, and gotten a job at a decent company.
It's not like I thought I was dumb.
I just thought it was foolish and a waste of time to study hard. So, my grades were average. I went to a run-of-the-mill high school, a low-ranking college, and then joined this company. Now, I live alone in an apartment, walking around every day to secure new contracts, living the life of an ordinary office worker. In April, after President Anderson's greeting for the new fiscal year, I was preparing to go out when a senior told me there were no new hires this year either.
Looks like I'm still at the bottom. Feeling a bit down, I headed out for my sales rounds.
After visiting a few companies, it was nearing lunchtime. And I was thinking about finding somewhere to eat when I noticed a woman in a suit bowing as she exited a building ahead.
Is that Emily? It was indeed Emily.
She bowed several times to what appeared to be a business partner, then quickly got into a car and drove off without even bothering to fix her hair.
She's working hard too.
As I watched her car drove past, I was reliving the memory of the old Emily. The next day, I returned to my parents' house for some errands. While relaxing in the living room, my mother told me that Emily's father had passed away, and Emily had taken over as president of the company. Emily was still in her early 20s. Taking over the family business and becoming president at such a young age must be an unimaginable pressure. Moreover, she lost her mother a long time ago and lived alone with her father.
I wonder if she's okay. I wandered outside and walked over to Emily's house. It was quiet and still.
As I looked up at her second-floor room, the curtain happened to open, and our eyes met. I quickly looked away, pretending not to notice, but then the front door opened and Emily appeared.
Well, it's been a while. Peeking into rooms is a crime, you know.
Her words were sharp as ever, but she looked quite tired.
Hey, it's been a while. I heard your dad passed away.
Her face clouded over when I abruptly mentioned her father.
Yeah, he collapsed suddenly last year and never recovered.
She leaned against the gate, looking down and swinging one foot.
I heard you took over the company. That must be tough. It is. But I have to do it. The employees have families to support, so I have to keep things going.
That's just like her, taking everything on herself. She was always like that. Even if I told her to delegate, she wouldn't listen and would insist on handling everything herself.
I'm just here to pick up some documents for the company, then I have to get back. I'm really busy, you know.
I could tell she was putting on a brave face. Even after returning home, I couldn't stop thinking about her lonely figure and wondered if there was anything I could do to help.
A few weeks later, I stood at the entrance of a building. This was my new workplace starting today. I had quit my old job and joined this company. Yes, Emily's company. Man, I'm just as meddlesome as she is. Muttering to myself, I walked in.
Emily's company isn't huge, but it's not so small that everyone knows who's coming and going. Emily, being busy, hadn't noticed that I had joined her company. She was swamped with taking over her father's duties and visiting clients, leaving the internal affairs to Vice President James Davis.
Seeing Emily work so hard,
I decided to support her from behind the scenes and requested a position in the General Affairs Department to handle a wide range of tasks. Fortunately, I was assigned to the desired department.
A few weeks into my new job, I got into the elevator from the first floor, and Emily entered from the second floor.
Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me.
Wait a minute. What are you doing here? I work here.
I'm in General Affairs now. I explained to Emily that I was here to support her. She pulled my arm and said, "Get off at the next floor," then forced me out. When she asked what was going on, I explained that I had come to support her. She looked troubled. I thought she would be happy, but instead, she started yelling at me.
Live your own life. Why are you dedicating it to me? I guess I'm just a meddlesome person. Just like you.
I said with a smile, but she grew even angrier.
You're free, unlike me.
You should live as you please.
What are you doing? I came here because I wanted to. Think of me as a free spirit. I can work wherever I want, right? What are you talking about? Stop saying confusing things.
Emily didn't seem convinced and remained silent with a stern expression. In the awkward silence that followed, we didn't exchange any more words.
After that, I often sought Emily around the office.
But as days passed, it became clear that she was getting more and more exhausted. She was carrying the weight of her employees' lives on her shoulders. For her, it was a heavy burden. But at this rate, she would eventually break down.
Emily needs a break. That stubborn girl is probably trying to handle everything on her own. I need to do something.
I was racking my brain on how to get her to rest. Around that time, rumors started circulating that Emily was verbally abusing employees and intimidating them for unreasonable reasons.
Emily would never do such a thing. Knowing her since childhood, I found it impossible to believe.
However, the rumors spread rapidly and even reached the shareholders. They say Emily is running around trying to put out these rumor fires every day. The shareholders think she's too young to be president and words are starting to spread around.
I overheard this conversation while entering data on my PC.
They're saying she doesn't even understand her situation and is just running around clueless, which makes her a laughingstock to the shareholders.
Emily puts her all into everything she does. But sometimes her dedication seemed pitiable. It's good to be diligent.
But her weakness is her insensitivity on the current situation.
You need to get your facts straight, Emily.
I wanted to advise her, but she was always so busy that I couldn't catch her. Then, Emily wanted to personally apologize to those affected by her supposed misdeeds, but she was stopped. It was James who prevented her. Apparently, James said, the complainants are too scared of you to meet, and didn't let her see them. If the conversation between Emily and James were leaked to the staff, it means that this company has a serious confidentiality issue. Amidst this chaos, I began to see the weak points of this company. As the days went by, Emily's reputation plummeted. Customers and partners started asking, "Is it true that your president has a lot of problems? Is it safe to continue doing business with you?" The whole company was on edge. The employees started looking at her with suspicion, and the shareholders even said, "She's too young to be president. She should step down and let James take over." By the time I realized it, Emily had been completely surrounded and was planning to hand the company over to James. Emily lost everything in an instant. A few days later, the shareholders' meeting decided on the change in presidency, and the news was communicated to clients and business partners. Emily and the new president, James, made rounds to inform everyone about the transition, and James officially took over the company. After the handover, Emily reluctantly left the company and returned to her empty family home. What was the point of me coming here? I let her father's company fall into someone else's hands. Feeling frustrated and ashamed, I watched from afar as James celebrated at his inauguration party, biting my lip in frustration. That night, I headed to my parents' house to see Emily. Standing in front of the Johnson nameplate, I saw a dim light on the second floor. I pressed the intercom but got no response. I pressed it again. Yes. After a while, I heard Emily's voice. When I said my name, the door quietly opened just enough for Emily to show her face. "Aren't you supposed to be at the party? I left early. Can I come in?" Emily nodded and led me to the living room. She motioned for me to sit at the table, so I took a seat diagonally from her. "I'm sorry, Tom. You went through all the trouble to get into my company, and now I'm gone. I'm the one who should apologize. I came to support you, but I couldn't do anything. I'm really sorry." As I bowed my head, Emily started patting my shoulder. "That's not true. I knew you were secretly helping me with scheduling meetings and looking into the rumors about me. It meant a lot to me." So she knew. I thought I was working discreetly. But now I'm not there anymore. You can't support me. It's my fault. I lost my father's company. I can't stop crying. I shouldn't cry. But I can't stop." She sobbed. In her family home filled with happy memories, Emily clung to my clothes and sobbed uncontrollably. "I've known you since we were kids. I know you'd never do something so unreasonable. Why are you being so kind to me today? If you're kind to me now, I can't stop crying. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But I can't stop." She continued to weep. I held Emily tightly as she cried. I don't know how much time passed, but as she slowly calmed down, she started to speak. I was jealous of you. You have your parents, and you're free. I honestly couldn't be happy that you came to help. I'm sorry. I understand how you feel. We've known each other for how long? Since kindergarten. That's right. I even know about the mole on your butt. What? Oh, come on, you jerk. She playfully hit me, a smile returning to her face. You'll be okay now. We ended up talking about old times for about an hour before I got ready to leave. As I reached for the door handle, she called out from behind. Tom, thank you for today. I feel a bit better now. Don't cry after I leave. If you wake up with a swollen face like a meat bun, no one is going to marry you. Shut up. If that happens, you'll have to marry me. I don't like meat buns. You always have a comeback, don't you? You never change. We both laughed as I left. About 2 weeks later, Emily invited me to a cafe. As soon as I arrived, she leaned in and started talking. She said some former employees had come to her. Out of nowhere, they said to her, "We quit that company. You are the only president for us." They proposed starting a new company with her. They said I could follow in my father's footsteps and build a company from scratch with them. Maybe it's not such a bad idea. Emily's eyes shone with a glimmer of hope. In the end, I decided to join her. We were just a few people, but we began preparing to start a new company. However, I still had things to do. I hadn't quit the old company yet. I wanted to find out who was behind the rumors about Emily's unreasonable behavior.
My first suspect was the new president, James. He knew that Emily and I were acquaintances because he overheard me telling Emily, "I'm in general affairs now." However, that was also the moment when Emily and I had an argument. So, he probably didn't think that Emily and I had reconciled and were still friends behind the scenes. Seeing me stay despite Emily's departure, he assumed we had completely severed ties, leaving me off his radar. So, I began discreetly gathering information from colleagues and secretaries, keeping an eye on James. Like Emily, James began frequently going out to visit clients and shareholders, becoming so busy that he couldn't keep track of the internal situation. The employees who gathered around Emily were not just any employees, they were key members from the finance, HR, and sales departments. With people who managed the company's finances and secured new contracts suddenly gone, James was in a panic. Soon, as more and more valuable employees resigned, shareholders began expressing their concerns. Is it okay for them to leave? These are the people who have been here since the company's inception. James tried to placate the shareholders by visiting them constantly, but without adequate handovers, the remaining employees were at a loss. The resignations continued, and the company began to lose its ability to function as an organization. I was aware of all this. In fact, I had identified the discontented employees, visited each department, and encouraged them to take action. Eventually, I discovered that it was James himself who had been making the abusive remarks. All the complaints directed at Emily had been redirected or fabricated by James. Additionally, James had been meeting with the shareholders behind Emily's back, convincing them that she was too young to handle the responsibilities of a president. When I had gathered substantial evidence and testimonies, James finally realized that I was investigating him. "Tom, you're just planning to start a company with Emily, aren't you? I can't trust someone who supports the former president. From now on, you'll work as a janitor." He said this as he informed me of my job reassignment. However, James was unaware that the resigned employees had gathered around Emily. He didn't have the time or capacity to keep track of that. So, I boldly declared, "Yes, that's right. I'm going to start a new company with her." With that, I left the company. A few years later, I heard from a former secretary that James had broken down in tears. The company had finally gone bankrupt. Emily was surprised when she heard the news. Although she knew the company's performance had been declining since James took over, she didn't expect it to actually go bankrupt. It's understandable, though, because I had a hand in its downfall. "Did you do all this?" she asked. "I didn't do anything. I just made sure the shareholders knew about James's wrongdoings. Indeed, I hadn't acted directly." The evidence I painstakingly collected revealed James's misconduct, leading to his self-destruction. My negotiation skills, honed from winning a customer service contest in childhood arguments, were finally put to use in persuading shareholders to distance themselves from James. As a result, we managed to bring the shareholders to our side. It's like you've unleashed your hidden abilities. You're a real hero. Emily smiled. The evidence I gathered included instances of James calling subordinates trash and telling high school graduates to just do the cleaning. He even began restructuring to cut costs. He would abruptly transfer those who refused to be laid off to other departments, forcing them to resign. Due to James's unreasonable actions, the workplace descended into chaos, and the company's performance plummeted. When Emily suddenly disappeared, the business partners, already harboring suspicions, quickly moved to terminate their contracts upon seeing the declining performance. This caused the shareholders' trust to plummet, and then I delivered the final blow by presenting evidence of James's misdeeds. Before we knew it, there was no path left for the company except bankruptcy. Later, Emily told me that James was actually a relative. Her parents felt sorry for James, who had failed to secure a job, and used their connections to get him into the company. Initially, he was just a regular employee. However, due to complaints from colleagues about working with the president's relative, he was given the title of vice president and an office. His duties remained those of a regular employee. Reflecting on the past, Emily said, "My parents' kindness and sympathy for James led to his promotion, and ultimately, the company's downfall. It was partly their fault for being too lenient." The new company Emily established was a job placement service. She wanted to provide an environment where people like James, who struggled to find employment,
could secure jobs on their own merit, without being coddled.
Emily visited James after his company folded. Long time no see. I started a job placement company. If you'd like, I'd be happy to help you in any way I can.
But James refused her offer.
No, it's fine. I've realized something important through all this. I understand now how incompetent I really am. Someone like me should start from the bottom.
I got carried away and desired a position that was beyond my capabilities.
Thank you for taking the time to reach out to me.
The bankruptcy changed his perspective. Now, James has returned to his family home and is working part-time at a convenience store nearby. From vice president to part-time worker, it might seem like a fall from grace, but James smiles more now than he ever did before.
Everyone has their own way of improving their skills.
Some get qualifications, while others, like him, start over from the beginning. What James needed wasn't kindness or sympathy, but to be treated not as a relative, but simply as a new employee.
Emily continued to reflect on James's situation, discussing the lessons learned. That doesn't mean kindness and sympathy are unnecessary.
Those feelings are important because they help us listen to others sincerely. The issue is how we respond after hearing their stories. When I said this, she smiled and agreed, that's true.
But sometimes it's important to clearly express your feelings to the other person.
Emily said with a mischievous grin, looking at me.
Yeah, if you don't honestly express your feelings, the other person won't understand how you feel, I replied. Especially when it comes to saying I love you. She said, peering into my face. What? When I couldn't respond, she laughed, seems like you can't argue with that. I won today. She smiled happily and intertwined her fingers with mine. On our intertwined fingers, shining rings gleamed beautifully.
A few years later, Emily's company stabilized, and we were finally able to have our wedding. Amid the congratulations from everyone, James didn't attend, but we received a postcard from him with a simple congratulations.
We vowed to continue supporting each other in both our work and personal lives. Even though we always have a comeback for each other every day.